Alright everybody, just wanted to record a video. This is problem 3C from the homework that is due on Tuesday the 18th, and the problem says, what is the probability that a random selection of 5 days will have a mean that exceeds 7? So anytime they're talking about exceeding something, I know I'm going to be doing a normal CDF. And I know it's going to be helpful to draw a picture. So I'm coming up and down. And they tell me at the beginning the average number of widgets that is defected is 5. But remember here, the standard deviation is not 1.8, because remember, we have a difference here. We have the population, and then we have the sample. The population has a mean of mu. The sample has a mean of x bar, which equals mu. But then the standard deviation for the population is sigma. For the standard deviation of the sample is equal to sigma divided by square root of n. Remember, we know information about the sample. This is from the central limit theorem, which says if n is big enough, right, then we know that regardless of what the population is, the population could be skewed, the population could be normal, the population could be uniform distribution, it could be anything. In this case, they told us the population was normally distributed. Assume that the number of widgets that are defective follow a normal distribution. It didn't have to be. Regardless of what the population is distributed like, the sample will be normally distributed as long as n is large enough according to the central limit theorem. In this case, n is 5 days. Now, 5 isn't necessarily large enough, but it is good enough because the population, they told me, was normal, with mu equal to 5 and sigma, or standard deviation, equal to 1.8. That means that the sample, regardless of how small the n is, in this case n is 5, sample will be normally distributed. X bar will equal mu, which will equal 5, and sigma will be 1.8, sigma of x bar divided by square root of 5, which, let me take a look on the calculations I made. That will be equal to 0.805. This picture is of the sample. And how did I know this was of the sample? Because it said, what is the probability that a random selection of 5 days, they want me to take a sample of 5 days. And then it's asking, we'll have a mean number that of defective widgets that exceeds 7. Well, here's 7. And they want to know what's going on here. So I'm going to go normal, CDF, 7 to infinity, of 7 to infinity. The mean of this is 5, and the standard deviation of the sample is 0.805. When I put this on my calculator, I'm going to get 0.0065, which is equal to 0.65%. By the way, this says, and if you guys cannot read this, I can let me zoom in on this real quick, just so everybody can read it. This says normal CDF 7 to infinity 5, 0.8. Hope that's helpful. Let me go ahead and erase that and rewrite it. I know it's very small, but I want to erase it and rewrite it. 0.805. I think that should be clearer. Yes, it is. Great. So what this is saying is that there's a 0.65% chance that within the sample of 5 days that we exceed 7 widgets that are defective. So basically, it is super rare that the sample has more than 7 widgets that are defective. So in other words, in part D, I'll even go ahead and do D for you, because I want to think through the logic. In D says, would this, and this being more than 7 widgets are messed up, make me feel like the machine was defective, or the machine was malfunctioning? Absolutely. Because the probability that more than 7 are defective is only 0.65%. That's super low. So if this happens, my theory is, that the machine is malfunctioning. Because if the machine is working normally, the probability of more than 7 defects is only 0.65%. That's super low. Let me put it in different terms. The probability that Yes Prep Southwest basketball team can beat Yes Prep Gulfton is really high. The probability that Yes Prep Southwest basketball team can beat the Houston Rockets is really low. So if Yes Prep Southwest beats the Houston Rockets, I would say something probably went wrong with the Houston Rockets that day. Maybe all the players were sick, maybe the referees were rigging the game, or something happened that was probably malfunctioning. But if Yes Prep Southwest beats Gulfton, I would say, well, there's a really high probability of that, so that's nothing strange. That's just normal. But for the Yes Prep Southwest basketball team to beat the Houston Rockets, that is not normal. Something was malfunctioning. Probably the Rockets were sick, or the refs were biased, or something. Similarly, the probability that the machine has more than 7 breakdowns is 0.65%. That's rare. That's like Yes Prep Southwest beating the Rockets. So if the machine has more than 7 breakdowns, in other words, if Yes Prep Southwest beats the Rockets, my theory is something is malfunctioning. The refs were against them, or players were sick. The machine is probably malfunctioning. Maybe a part doesn't work. Maybe the settings are wrong. I don't know what it is, but something is probably malfunctioning. Let me zoom out so you can get a picture of the whole thing. And with that, let's call it a video.